Raise some
Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.
Welcome to the Raising Cain Show, where we delve deep into the issues that matter. Today, we have the honor of hosting retired Brigadier General Christopher Walker, also known as Mookie by many, who has been dedicated his life to service in the U.S. Air Force and now commands the West Virginia Air National Guard with over 5,200 flight hours and a career spanning from New York to the Middle East. General Walker brings unparalleled insight into the current state of our military. We're going to talk about leadership, policy, and the future of our armed forces. And we'll probably get into some other political stuff that's going on today because both Mookie and I, have an interest in politics, obviously. So I'm looking forward to Mookie. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited
Thanks
about
for having me. By the way, I love your opening music. I was tapping my feet.
Yeah, that was my campaign song, so you had to use it for something.
Oh my goodness, no, that's powerful. I love it.
So, but yeah, no, I it's been great getting to know you, and of course, we first met each other on the campaign trail at all those Lincoln dinners, throughout West Virginia, and I probably gained 20 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
So, I want to get into, there's so much going on right now in our military is really, it's so important that we have a strong military to defend our nation. And at the same time, we have been through, basically the last couple of decades of just constantly spreading our military thin around the world. Getting us engaged in, essentially warfare all over the place. And I want to do something a little different. I want to basically get your perspective on some things, because there's a lot of people, obviously, we don't want to be at war if we can avoid it. But there is also something to be said about being well-trained and being, having a military force that is, ready to go at any moment's notice. And I think that we've seen a major social experimentation under the Biden administration that's happened, in our military. We've seen morale at some of its, lowest, numbers. We've seen them having a hard time during the Biden administration, even recruiting the numbers. There was a report put out by, I think it was Heritage Institute, that said that basically all 3 out of the 4 branches were not capable of meeting their mission. And, both and it was in a lot of different factors. I think the Navy and the Air Force and the Army were all, not capable of meeting their mission. The Marines were the only ones that were capable of meeting the mission. And the only reason why that was because they don't have a 2-front war mission requirement that is required of the other 3 branches.
Additionally, Marines resisted changing, and so they resisted and outright refused to lower standards. And they said, "We're going to be Marines because that is our brand, and anybody who wants to join us wants to be a Marine. If we change that, then we lose." And so they did not have the same recruiting problems that the other services did when they watered everything down.
Yeah. So, we've got a new Secretary of Defense. We've got
Woo!
somebody that I think is, um, there's a lot of people. I had you on my radio show and we talked about this. There's a lot of people that have been concerned because he's not from the elite group of
Established.
the establishment. He's not a Pentagon, flag officer. He's not somebody who is part of the military industrial complex in that sense. But he is somebody that is loyal to the ideals that President Trump brings to office. And I think the American people are tired of us being involved in these forever wars all around the world, that many of which have nothing to do with American interests. And I think he wrote a book that I think details basically getting the military back to regular order and mission of basically being the most lethal force on the face of the planet. And so, what are your thoughts on Hegseth, and what do you hope to see, out of him in this next during this administration?
So some people I've talked to, they're fixated on the fact that he only made it to major or lieutenant colonel. I think it's major, and but I go, do you remember Chuck Hagel? He actually was enlisted, so I don't even think he made it to senior NCO. I might be wrong about that, but that has nothing to do with anything. I said read Pete Hegseth's book. And if you can argue with any of the points made in his book, then all right, fine, come to me with it and let's discuss it. But otherwise, you have no idea what he's capable of. A lot of secretaries of defense have been brought in from who had no military experience whatsoever. The last one had a lot of military experience, and we see how well that went. Everything went to crap. So again, I say give Secretary Hegseth a chance because his ideals are exactly what we need.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we're going to see. I think we're seeing something different right now with this presidency, even different than Trump's first term. Trump's first term, he was still very much tied to, taking staff, advice, if you will, from establishment people. And so he brought in a lot of people that some were good, some not so good, some terrible. And, and he quickly fired them and moved on. But this time around, Trump seems like he's had the last 4 years to really plan this out and think this out. And they're going in there and they are just, it is like we're seeing
Can
a
we say
wrecking
it
ball.
on the air? He's kicking ass.
I can't, every day I wake up and it's like, I can't wait to get online and see what is, being discovered and exposed today.
And what is
What
making the
part of it?
liberals cry? Because
That's right. Yeah,
I have a little shot glass wanting to catch their tears.
exactly. Exactly. So when you were still dealing with all of the former administration and their DEI crap and seeing all of that making its way into the military, talk about what that did to the morale of the military. And you brought up some things that I thought were very interesting on the radio show, especially as it relates to a lot of the military stoking racial divide and things like that.
They were doing it they were playing the exact Marxist playbook. So from the lower ranks, they were having this supposed training that was stoking, saying things like the white people have the power advantage over the people of color, and thus they are the oppressors, and the people of color are the oppressed. And I'm going, wait a minute. Imagine anybody who has been in combat and bullets whizzing over them. They're
Yep.
watching their buddy being shot, and they're trying to staunch the bleeding. They're dragging their buddies out of there. They themselves are being dragged out because they're injured. But these people are saving each other's lives, and they are black, white, Asian, Hispanic, whatever. And then imagine them coming back to the States and taking some training, saying, "Oh yeah, your white buddy is actually pretty racist. No matter how much he says he loves you." Me, that would make me want to punch somebody in the face. Seriously. And so that is the kind of things that they were trying to do at the lower levels. At the higher levels, I was in this course that the Air Force spent a lot of money on, or wasted a lot of money on, I'd say, out of Georgetown University. They called it the Executive Course for Managing Inclusion. And in there, they were trying to say the same thing, that white people of color cannot be racist because white people have the power advantage over them, and white people are inherently racist. And then the other thing they were trying to tell us, and that's what I said, okay, enough is enough. But that if I did not meet someone for the first time and ask that person his or her pronouns, then I was wrong. And I said, oh, okay, no. And a buddy of mine in that course, she's retired now, but she's another general, Tracy Smith. She doesn't mind me telling her name because she grew up in Philly and she's a fighter. And when I say a fighter, there have been some times that I could tell you over drinks where, holy smoke, she's a fighter. I say, all right, Tracy, we got to get out of here. But nevertheless, she started challenging these notions, and then they tried to make her seem like she was disrupting the class and everything like that. And after that evening, she calls me and says, Mookie, did I sound like an a-hole in there? And I said, oh, no, heck no. They were trying to gaslight you. Good on you. We got to keep fighting this, because if this is the kind of stuff that they're trying to push on us, then we are in big trouble. And these are the kinds of things that I fed along to my friends in STARS, Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. And then they would feed that to congressional members and senators. And then you would see hearings. There was a set of hearings where they had the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, Assistant Secretary of the Air Force for Manpower and Reserve Affairs, and the Undersecretary of Defense for PNR, Gil Cisneros, and the Republicans in the Senate lit into them. I'll give them this. The Assistant Secretary of the Air Force and Manpower and Reserve Affairs at the time, Alex Wagner, he's smooth, and he was the only one who didn't look stupid. He was prepared. The rest of them looked like total idiots. And I was watching that hearing in the Pentagon with a few of my friends, and we were literally eating popcorn laughing.
So they bring you into this class, and basically, I'm sure that they did what liberals typically do. They just assume because you're black that you agree with DEI and all this other nonsense.
That is how I made it through that office for 2 years without them without them striking me out of there. Because there are certain times when they would start. Some people in the office would start talking bad about Trump, and I'd say, hey, well, that's unprofessional. And they were kind of looking at me like, okay, maybe he's trying to be professional, or is he a Trump supporter? They didn't know, but they looked at my face and they said, no, he's just trying to be professional.
Oh yeah, well, that's the thing, is that the level of arrogance that I've seen with the left, just this. They can't even make an intelligent argument. If you point out to them that they are actually doing the very things, that they call racism, or that they call fascism or Marxism, they're being exactly that.
Projection.
With a lot of their behavior.
Yes.
and I, it's like, so I've seen changes, from the military. When I was in, I joined in 1996. It was, Bill Clinton was president. It was not a great time for the military. We saw major drawdowns. We saw, morale issues.
We had the RIF, or the reduction
Yep.
in forces. Yep.
Yep. We had a one of the things that that had been implemented was the "Don't Ask, Don't Tell" policy, which was kind of weird, to be honest with you.
I don't know about you, but everybody I knew knew who was gay and who wasn't.
Yeah, we all knew who.
Said is, hey, are you kicking ass? Okay, fine.
The first day, I'll never forget. I was in AIT, and the first day that we were allowed to wear civilian clothes and go out and have a good time was the first day you knew for sure who was gay and who was not. It's like, I remember one of the guys in my unit, he was wearing these like knickers. He had a fishnet t-shirt, and he had some like little thumb cuffs hanging on the back of his, and some platform shoes. And I was like, oh, that guy's
okay.
Where's a $3 bill? But
he's not really trying to hide it. But
no, he wasn't.
Can he fight? All right, fine.
But but at the end of the day, when we're all, and this is the beauty of the military. This is what I try to help people understand. My lefty friends, regardless of what somebody thinks about institutionalized racism or whatever, and was there a time in America that existed? Sure, there was, but I believe that has been done away with in the military for a very long time. Like, I grew up in Southern California, in a very liberal, progressive part of the country, and I was even shocked at how well integrated the military was. Now, I had some problems in basic training with some guys that that were from areas where I had some run-ins with some guys that were Black Panther types from New York and whatnot. But mostly, once I got out of basic, and that was part of what they did in basic. And I mentioned this story to you. I'd never been to the South. And I went
they forced everybody to get to know.
That's right.
From different parts of the country.
They told us, all right, you maggots, get off the bus, and they said, all right, I want all the white guys in a line over here, and I want the Hispanic guys in a line over here, and the black guys in a line here. And I'm going, oh my gosh, they're segregating us. The only thing I knew about the South was Mississippi burning. So I thought, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But then they said, okay, you, and you're going to be battle buddies. And so they would put us in a quad, together. And so they integrated us. And, and then the next thing they do is they go and they make you shave, they go shave your head. And then they go and they they issue your uniform. And before you know
it, they forge you in the crucible under that heat and pressure. All of a sudden, you all look different, but you're brothers and sisters after that.
That's right. And I'll never forget, they would tell us, don't think you just got off the block. Don't act like you just got off the block. That was one of the things that drill sergeants used to, drill into us. And the other thing is they would tell us, that I remember them saying, we're not black, we're not white, we're not Hispanic, we're Army green, and that was so. And I saw more mixed race marriages than I'd ever seen before in the military. And like I said, and I grew up in California. So it wasn't even an issue when I was in, and then they decided to turn it into an issue. And even the thing with gays in the military and all that, again, it was a little strange because when I first got in was when they first instituted that don't ask, don't tell policy. And they kind of really didn't know how to do that. And I'll never forget, I went through MEPS, and they take me out onto this Los Angeles MEPS. They take me out onto the balcony area, and there's this, officer sitting there in a notepad, and he's like, okay, I can't ask you about your sexual preferences, but is there anything that you want to tell us? And I'm like, I said, look, dude, I'm straight. All right. I'm married. I got kids. And he goes, well, just, I'm not asking. And I cracked up because they didn't know how to deal with it. Clearly,
look, even before Don't Ask, Don't Tell, I knew, and everybody I know knew who was gay or whatnot. We just didn't care as long as you fought. All right. Now there were some instances of people turning them people, but that's probably because they were having some sort of tiff. But otherwise, really, nobody really cared.
Nobody cares.
As long
Nobody
as you,
cares. Yeah.
as long as you know how to fight,
Obviously,
come with
yeah.
me.
Obviously, in training,
Yep.
you're expected to behave a certain way. On the battlefield, or
Yep.
when you're at your job, you're expected to behave in a professional manner.
Yep.
And some of the things that though we've seen have just gone off the rails within the military. Things like having drag shows on military bases.
Instead of tolerance, they want you to celebrate, and you go,
They want to
okay,
shove it down your throat.
exactly. They want you to, they want you to smile and say, "I love it," and you go, "But I don't love it."
No.
I don't have to love it. All I need to do is know that you're going to fight alongside me, well trained, and we're going to win. Otherwise, I don't need to get all in your business. Okay,
That's right.
So, yeah.
The other thing that I remember too, that seems to have majorly changed, and I saw this because my career, I left enlisted service and started working for the federal government, for the Department of Defense, doing first as a contractor and then became a federal employee with the Navy. But as a federal employee with the Navy, I was forced to go to all this sexual harassment training and all this stuff.
You got to do all the same stuff. Yep.
And they had everything, all the same stuff that I had to do in the military. And they started introducing some things that were kind of weird. So starting about, I think it was like 2012, I was in Hawaii, and as a civilian employee, I was required to go to some sexual harassment training. And all of us are in this big old theater, and we're watching this presentation up there, and they have these little short videos we got to watch. And I'll never forget, because it really showed me that we had a major problem, starting in the military, and it started with Obama. But there was this video that showed some different scenarios, right? Workplace harassment type scenarios. Now, some of them were legit, like one guy trying to grope a woman, in the office, hey, oh, let me rub your shoulders, that kind of thing, clearly inappropriate behavior for the office. But one of the things that was very strange was they had this video of a group of peers that were out of town, on work assignment. I'm sure you probably saw this video at some point. But these guys are sitting at a bar.
Of them, but I probably did.
They're sitting at a bar, and they're all laughing, having a good time. Like I said, they're peers. Nobody's each other's boss or anything like that. They're civilians too. They're not even military. They're civilians working for the military. And one of the girls says, I'm going to go to my room. And the guy say, hey, we'd like me to walk you to a room. And she says, sure. So he walks with her to the room, and then, and like any normal dude, right, is going to think she's giving signals that she's interested. And all he did was he tried to lean in to kiss her, before she went in her room, and then she puts up her hand, stop. If that's all they showed, I've been like, okay, fine. Yeah. That makes sense. But then they go on to say that's sexual harassment.
Whoa,
I'm like, what the hell are we talking? What are we talking about here?
About 90% of the force is,
Right. I'm just thinking. And you should have heard.
What if she had leaned into him and he was like,
right? Then it would have been okay.
Is that sexual harassment too? Okay, so yeah.
So this was the weird thing. So this video, when it played, every person in the room was like, what the heck? Like, we were all saying, it was funny. It was almost like a mass revolt. But this has been going on, and it's not just been, obviously, it's not just been the military enlisted and the officers. They've been trying to do this in the civilian workforce as well. And they have been basically pushing out reasonable, conservative people at every chance they get. Then you had, of course, COVID came along, and you had, the Secretary of Defense put forward an illegal order to push this vaccine on soldiers when there was not even a presidential order for it, and it was an experimental vaccine. And it turns out the one that was given to many of these guys wasn't even one that had been tested or even on the the experimental.
Now
So,
it's coming out that it caused ill effects, and it
right.
messed a lot of people.
Yeah. So that right there, I think part of that, the whole point of that was they knew conservatives in general would be opposed to that, and it was a way of identifying them and getting them out of the military. And I think they fired something like over 8,000, U.S. troops, and those are just the enlisted guys, because there were thousands of officers who resigned and resign their commissions. So now Trump has by executive order has demanded that that they be paid back pay and allowed to come back, which I think is a really good thing.
You'd be surprised now. I monitor a bunch of these groups on LinkedIn and Facebook, and there are a lot of people saying no, they shouldn't because they disobeyed an order. I said, and then I said, should I get into this with them? But there are plenty of people out there who did it for me and went in and talked to them about the difference between an order and a legal order and things like that. But some of those people they're hopeless. They're like, nope. You should have just done whatever they said. And I go, wow, all right, well, we don't have a lot of critical thinkers out there.
Well, and that's the problem, and I'm sure you saw this in your through your career. I certainly saw it during my time in the military, and that is that obviously you want people to follow orders, especially on the battlefield, especially in combat type situations. You don't want people questioning, and so the military does a really good job of, and there's really no other way to saying it, of brainwashing people to follow their chain of command, because that you need that military discipline on the battlefield. But what they don't do a good job of, and I think it's sad that we basically had a scenario where they kicked out all the people who had critical thinking, is we don't do a good job of ensuring that people know, okay, if there is a problem, if there is some level of corruption, if there is some some unlawful order that's been given, what are you supposed to do? What is the right approach? And if somebody has the balls to show some integrity and do the difficult thing of saying, no, I'm not going to follow that unlawful order, and and not only that, but I'm going to go up the chain. There's usually a lot of retaliation for that, and that's
yes,
it is
a lot of times it's because the people in the chain are cowardly. And they just want to go along to get along because they're looking for their next rank. There are very, very few people out there. So in Air Force heritage and history, there was one General Billy Mitchell who went against the establishment, and they court-martialed him. But later on, he was promoted to Brigadier General, and at the Air Force Academy, our dining hall is named after him because he had the balls to call it like it is. There are very, very few people like that nowadays. It's unfortunate. It's cowardly. We don't have the same kind of people, the same kind of mettle, mettle, that we had during World War II. Unfortunately.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's another thing too that I want to ask you, especially from the standpoint of being, having made Brigadier General. There seems to be this thing, and I've heard this said by others. I was not an officer; I was on the enlisted side, so I don't know it firsthand. But it seems to me that to make it above Brigadier General, you basically have to be a part of the establishment, it seems.
To make it above 2-star.
Is it 2-star? Okay.
Yes.
So
and everybody knows that. No, there's no one's going to argue with that. Everybody knows.
And that was something I saw, and I think that was part of the problem with a lot of these guys that were in the Pentagon, working down there, that were above, were these flag officers. And I think of General Milley and what he did when basically Trump made a statement, and then he went to China and said, "Oh, we're not going to do that." And
So
I don't know how
the
that
fact
wasn't.
that he admitted that,
Yeah,
I can't.
he should have been
I
court-martialed.
said to myself, why wasn't he in jail the very next day? I said, oh my God, okay. So now after that, everything that came out of his mouth, I did not respect.
Yeah, same. And so I think that's going to be one of the areas where Pete Hegseth, I think that's going to be a challenging area, is how do you deal with these higher level establishment generals that have infected, who don't have critical thinking, who have basically done whatever they could just to get ahead.
During World War II, it was easy. They just fired him. He said, "You're out, bam, done." Especially those who weren't doing the job. Holy smokes! In the Pacific, there in Japan, I'm trying to remember the name of the general. I think it was Hensel, but he was just ineffective in his bombing of Japan, and they sent another general over there, Curtis LeMay, and Curtis LeMay got off the plane and said, "Sorry to tell you this, but you're being relieved. I'm taking over." And Curtis LeMay got results. But that's the way we did it. That's the way we did it. Nowadays, everybody's just afraid to hurt people's feelings, whereas Trump is not. Hey,
Definitely not.
What's his famous catchphrase? You're fired. Man, so look, so that's not going to happen anymore. Everybody's right now crapping their pants because now they have to show results.
Yeah, definitely. What's your take on the Doge and what they're finding and what you expect? I mean, like we all know, of course, there's the famous, what was it? I can't remember how much money it was that went missing right before 9/11, and that. What's his name? Secretary of Defense at the time.
Rumsfeld.
Rumsfeld, that's it. Rumsfeld, basically made this announcement that they had all this missing money, and then the next day, conveniently, it was out of the press because everything was about 9/11. Mm-hmm. There is still a ton of money that goes missing. Some of it, I'm sure, is probably black budget projects and things like that. Some of it is just mismanagement and, the way that contracts are awarded. And if you don't spend money, what happens to that money? All of that kind of nonsense. I think they need to fix a lot of that. But what are some areas that you think are areas where there's going to likely be some cuts to the military's budget? And particularly where there's likely fraud, waste, and abuse going on?
I think, first of all, what we got to do, every person who is in politics, congressional members, senators, or any other people in industry who start really raising Cain about Doge, investigate them, because they're probably getting hurt in the pocketbook because of the graft. But that being said, there are a lot of programs that I gotta hand it to him, even though I'm not his biggest fan. Secretary Kendall, the Secretary of the Air Force, started saying, "Okay, hold on a second. This next generation air dominance thing, it seems like a lot of vaporware. Let's pull back the throttle on that, mm-hmm. and start spending the money on tried and true." And so I'll give them credit for that.
I do remember they talked about that. Like, why are we wasting money, on some of because the cost of these planes,
exorbitant.
Exactly, totally exorbitant. And the question is do we really need them? I mean, right now, when you look at the numbers and in our primary adversaries, right? You've got China. I think they've surpassed us in terms of number of surface ships.
Oh, big time.
And
that number is rising because
that's right.
The capability, and we've squandered all of ours.
Yeah, and Russia, I think they really have a much larger land force than we do in terms of tanks and things like that.
Well,
where we
that's all being
dominate.
decimated now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's true.
And we see that because
that
of all the corruption, they haven't been maintaining any of their systems, and so a lot of their stuff doesn't even work anymore. And so we see that they're
well, on that note, that's one of the things that was in that Heritage report about the Air Force. Because I thought, how is the Air Force not ready? Why did they not have readiness? And the number one reason was lack of air, lack of flight time and lack of maintenance on our aircraft.
Yep.
Those two issues were a big problem. Now, I imagine, for regular Air Force versus, the reserve, Air Force, it's probably a little different because money comes from different places.
But another reason, and there are going to be people yelling at me for this, but typically within the reserves and the Guard, air-wise, their maintenance capability rates are a little bit higher because they have people who know those airplanes and have been working on the same airplanes for decades, whereas in the active duty they switch people every 3 years, and they don't and so they don't have that same sort of expertise that is built up. And so
that's true.
And the people in the Guard and Reserves figure out ways of getting around the supply chain issues, and they figure out a way to make it work.
Yeah. Speaking of air and maintenance and training missions and stuff, what is your take on what happened in DC with that helicopter flying into that plane?
So we're starting to hear more and more, and now that they've recovered the black boxes, we're hearing more and more. But I still go by my theory that the air crew in the helo thought they saw the RJ, but in reality they saw an A319 that was behind that RJ, and we're finding out now that they might have been on NOGs or night vision goggles at the time, which is not recommended in that area. There's so much light coming on from all of the buildings everywhere, so to be on NVGs in that area, that would have been a mistake. I'm not exactly sure that they were on, but there are certain calls that the air crew make when they come off NOGs that no one heard them say on the voice recorder yet. And so again, let's wait until the investigation comes out. But unfortunately, I'm putting the blame on that Army air crew.
Did you? I had seen something that had come out, and I haven't followed up on it, but I saw a report. I don't know if I think it was in the Hill that said that the black box that was recovered from the helo indicated that their altitude was different than what
they were supposed to be at 200 feet. The last I heard that they were at 278 feet, which is almost 300 feet. But even still, the fact that they told the tower that they are maintaining visual separation, they should have actually had that visual, and they should have. And so it tells me that they were keeping an eye on the wrong airplane.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think so. So in your current, what is okay? Let me rephrase this here. What are the biggest challenges that you see right now for Pete Hegseth in managing human capital within the military? Because I think that's been one of the biggest problems that they've had. They've got to increase their numbers.
So one has already been solved because even before he was confirmed, right after November 5th, the recruiting rates went like this because Trump was elected. But what Secretary Hegseth is doing right now, the thing that is really helping is reestablishing trust, because again, there's thousands and thousands, tens of thousands, I'll say, maybe even hundreds of thousands of service members who lost trust with, especially with the COVID vaccine that was foisted upon us. And then the lies that happened after that. And then them trying to cover up those lies and the wokeism. All of that being gone, he's reestablishing a trust. Because who wants to put their life on the line for a country that lies to them? and so reestablishing that trust is a big thing, and he's doing that right now. There are some leftists still left in, and they're crying and weeping, and if we're lucky, they'll pull the ejection handles and get the hell out. So those of us who really want to fight can fight and fight effectively.
Yeah. Well, folks, I've got to cut to a commercial break, but stick with us. When we get back, I want to get into modern warfare and technology and airlift evolving and talk about that a little bit. So we'll be right back after a short message.
Welcome to Shop with America, where the emphasis is on America. Our movement is to switch away from your shopping with the big box stores and the mega corporations back to supporting family-owned, made in America. We've been giving these big box stores our money every day for years. But what's happened is they've forced many small businesses to shut down. We call this the illusion of choice. We see all these products in these stores, but in reality, it's only a few companies that control it all. There are thousands of lawsuits for health damage because they put profit over our people. But there is another choice. We found a better way. There's a family-owned American factory with product integrity and have always done things the right way for the right reasons. And this company outperforms the big box stores. That's due to their month-to-month shopping club. They make everyday consumer products that we all use and buy again and again, like toothpaste, shampoo, coffee, and organic beef. Go to shopwithamerica.us today.
Welcome back to the Raising Cain Show. I'm here with Mookie Walker, retired Brigadier General. Mookie, let me ask you, you've flown in numerous operations worldwide.
Yes.
How do you see the role of tactical airlift evolving with modern warfare and technology?
So right now, let's say the balloon goes up in the Pacific. Anywhere inside the inside, well, anywhere within, I'd say 400 miles of mainland China, C-130s are probably not going to survive. What we're going to have to do first is have our brothers in the Navy and our fighters and bomber brothers soften the area a little bit first, and then C-130s will be able to operate maybe between different islands, and bringing the Marines who will probably be sending anti-ship cruise missiles at the Chinese ships from different islands, and we'll be resupplying them. But we will not be able to have any kind of permanent base there, because missiles will be raining down kind of like snowflakes from China all the time. We'll have to get our stuff in and get out, and that's the kind of thing we have to practice nowadays. We'll probably have to operate from Guam, which will still be within missile range of China, and from there fly to different islands and find our way back. There will have to be fuel on those islands and being moved around everywhere so that we can get back, because they call it the tyranny of distance when we're in the Pacific. C-17s will probably be utilized a whole lot more than C-130s in that fight. But eventually, once we soften up China, then C-130s can come in a little closer and start doing what we do.
You know, that brings up a good point. I don't think most people even realize just how large the Pacific Ocean is compared to the Atlantic Ocean.
Jesus Christ. Flying C-130s from Hawaii over to Japan, or even from Hawaii to the west coast of the United States, That is a long ride. You don't want to do it in the C-130. You want to be in the C-17 if you can. Even up there in the cockpit, it's like, Jesus Christ, when is this going to end? I mean, so it is a long way.
Yeah, it is. And really what we have there, as far as forward, Japan plays a huge role, in our operations there. Obviously, Guam, Hawaii, but right now, when you look at like the map of where our forces are deployed, do you see the need to shift some of our footprint from, say, Europe to Asia Pacific?
If I were king of the world right now, and it's already happening, actually, I would strike some deals with the Philippines, and we'd be building up there. We are right now. We are building up in Japan.
That's a very good point. We used to have bases there.
Yes.
We gave over those bases, but China has become very aggressive in the South China Sea, in particular in building these fake islands out of sand, that give them access to try to control major shipping lanes and things like that.
Oh, yes. So we should be trying to strike deals not only with the Philippines, but also Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. Right now, quite honestly, and I don't think they ever were, but Vietnam is not friends with China. And Vietnam, holy smokes, small country, but they're scrappers. And so if we make some deals with them, we can actually deter China from doing things. But if we wait until the balloon goes up, it's going to be too late, because the distance is too far. That whatever they want to do will be fait accompli, and then we'll have to fight them out of it.
Right. Given your involvement in operations like Provide Comfort, Volent Oak, how do you assess the U.S. military's readiness for humanitarian and disaster response operations today? I mean, we've seen some major things that have taken place in California, in South Carolina, in Florida. And obviously, we've activated military units to help in those types of situations. I think we're going to see probably more of these types of things happening.
I would say that our military is actually ready for that, particularly the National Guard, because these are the kinds of things that they practice all the time. What they do is dual use. So we try to figure out, okay, we can use this equipment to beat the Chinese, but we can also use this equipment to help in a flood or fire situation. We try to figure out ways it can be done in multiple ways. That's the magic of the Guard and the reserves. But the whole military is ready for that. The thing is, give us the mission and let us do it. Once you start getting a whole bunch of other people involved in it, and that's when things turn to crap. Look at FEMA and Western North Carolina.
I was living in Japan at the time of the Tohoku quake and all of that, and I saw Operation Tomodachi, which the Navy had the George Washington aircraft carrier that was there at Yokosuka Naval Base, and they were able to take that, which has a nuclear reactor on it, and so they were able to take that and basically plug it in, to provide power to some of these areas that were out, that did not have power, so that emergency services and things like that could be done, in the aftermath of that and the tsunami. That was a very crazy time, but that built so much goodwill with the people of Japan. I mean, that was a huge thing that built really good goodwill, and I think that's it's a diplomatic mission in a way. A humanitarian, but it also has a diplomatic role, because it does build those bonds when we're able to help and assist. So,
yes, but and the folks there in Japan are going to remember this for generations. Holy smokes! Last June, I went to the 80th anniversary of D-Day, and then in 2019, I went to the 75th. But there are old people there now who still, if you're American, first of all, I saw more American flags there in Normandy than I did in anywhere in the United States. Then they will invite you into their homes and say, oh, even if they don't speak any English, they'll use Google and say, please have some cheese with us, have some wine. You Americans saved my grandmother and I would not be here. And they are still grateful. And the same thing's going to happen in Japan decades from now because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. As someone who's advised on policy at high levels, what reforms do you advocate for to enhance the effectiveness of our military forces?
So here's one thing that I have actually been trying to advocate for the last few years before I retired. Way back when, at least in the Air Force, when I was a lieutenant, we had mandatory fun, meaning, okay, on Friday we're having a softball tournament, this squadron against this squadron, or basketball. That doesn't happen anymore. But what happened with that is we'd get to know all the people in our squadron, their families and everything who would be out
cohesion.
And we had that unit cohesion. Now they're letting people just scatter the four winds and stay on their phones. What we need to be doing again is nope. I'll see you on the softball field, but I don't have a glove. Well, you better get one because you're playing softball, and that's the way it used to be. And then I knew everybody. I knew their families, and it really brought us together. Now we don't have that anymore, and that is a big problem. There were tried and true ways of bringing about unit cohesion, and we abandoned them, and much to our chagrin.
Yeah, and that's a very important fact because, of course, the military already has a high level of mental health problems for those that I think we have like one of the highest rates.
Those are the times when you can actually see. Okay, seems like something going on with this person. There's a little friction in the family, but that's where you can catch it. If you try to rely on them telling you, forget it. No, that's when you catch that stuff, and you can see it plain as day in those kind of situations. Definitely.
So we've talked about the military for a while. There's so much that Pete Hegseth's going to have to. I don't envy the man. He's got a lot to do, and but I know the one good thing about the military is because of the way that it's designed, you can change things pretty quickly as long as you got the power to do it. And so I think he's going to change things very quickly within the military. And I'm hopeful for what that means for people like my son, who's in the Army right now.
Believe me, people have been waiting a long time for his reform. So it will actually happen quickly because people have been waiting for this, chomping at the bit for this.
Yeah. So what right now, with the political landscape that we're looking at and what Trump is doing and the changes that he's been making, what's the most exciting to you that you're seeing happening?
First of all, firing the people who will stab him in the back. Again, this is the way it ought to be. We have a lot of people out there now saying, "Oh, he has all of these people who are so loyal to him. They should be swearing an oath to the Constitution." But the problem is the people who are saying that never read the Constitution, because the Constitution says, yes, these people under his executive branch are supposed to be loyal to him, and so
they're supposed to carry out his mission.
But exactly. But they are preaching to the low information voters, and I'll be kind and say that. And so quite honestly, all of the furor over what he's doing, I laugh at and I celebrate it. So that is the best thing he's doing so far. Then the second thing is getting rid of wokeism. And so the great thing that he did with his transition team is usually we have a government, a transition team that's paid for by the government, but he said, no, I'm doing my own people, we'll pay for it ourselves. And they were able to keep things secret so that they could do this so they could do this shock and awe campaign. And it was rock the left back on their heels. And all they can do now is cry and look stupid on TV, saying the most stupid things and dig themselves further into the hole. It's wonderful to watch. And so right now, he's also shutting out news organizations that are hostile to him, and you know, they're crying too. AP just got the boot, and hey,
well, he just, you know, Trump already cut their budgets by just shutting down USAID, which was funneling money.
All that corruption,
Yep.
and we're showing the receipts, and we still have people on the left still crying about it. I go, the receipts are right there. Aren't you mad about that? If you're not mad about that, it seems to me that you are probably getting some of that graft money. That's why you're angry about that. So,
what blows me away on that is that, you know, I was stationed in South Korea, stationed in Japan, and you know, I remember first I worked in the Intel. I was not an Intel guy, but I was worked on the top secret messaging switch. So basically, I was in the same tent as those guys when I was in Korea, and so I learned a lot about the propaganda efforts back then that we did, and you know, Voice of America and all these other, you know, organizations, and a lot of funding that was going into media all around the world to try to push the idea of democracy. But it seems like something changed, and somewhere along the lines, they turned inward. It got taken over by the left, and instead of using those avenues to push for spreading a message of democracy and freedom to the rest of the world against the communists and against the, you know, those that are still out there, you know, running totalitarian governments, they began shifting that message to basically empower and ingratiate the Democratic Party. And
it got corrupted.
You know, it did. It got very corrupted. How do we stop that from happening again? Because I do think that
my thing has always been, if you really want something to stop, cut off the funding, and it will stop. And so that's exactly what the Trump administration is doing right now. And people are up in arms, and we have they find their corrupt judges to try and stop it.
These judges that were getting funding from USAID is the one that was blocking him from cutting off funding. It's like, you can't make this stuff up. And Congress, you know, they have a role that they're not acting on, and that is the impeachment process. They could be impeaching these judges, and they need to. The last time you had a good number of judges that got impeached was during it was during Ronald Reagan's presidency, and I think they need to bring some of that back, because you clearly have judges
that let people know there's a new sheriff in town, and we're coming after all of you who are corrupt, and you will not survive this. We need to have them running scared.
Absolutely. Well, Mookie, I got to run one more commercial here, and so I'm going to run another commercial break, and I got two of them, so I'm just going to run back to back. That way I don't have to cut in one more time. But folks, stick with us, and we're going to continue this conversation when we get back from the break.
That was beautiful.
It says, I woke up this morning and looked out the door to a country I don't recognize. They put masks on our face to hide our pain, and there's no fire in most people's eyes. And it's still true today. It's still true today that they've tried to destroy the American spirit. And in some instances, they've done a dadgum good job. But in other instances, they have lit an inferno in some people. And we right now are gathering some of those people that are on freaking fire to save this country.
Increasing expenses have caused us all a lot of pressure these days, and it's affecting even the wealthiest of people. Most have lost their sense of security, stability, and even hope for a strong financial future. The game plan of everyone in your cell phone has likely been disrupted or even hardcore stopped, and most are looking for a creative solution to regain financial momentum. Oftentimes, life's best solutions are the simplest. But first, a question. What is something most people think they should own but don't? Crypto, fine art, real estate? Nope. We are talking about real money. The kind kings and queens fought for and large institutions today buy in mass. We're talking about gold and silver, assets that provide confidence in tough financial situations. So the question is, do you own any? If you don't, you're not alone. Most people aren't maximizing the power of precious metals because it's just been too complicated. And even though they see advertisements about gold and silver daily, they don't really know who to trust. That is, until now. The bottom line is that buying gold and silver doesn't have to be complicated or scary. There's a simple, better way to accumulate assets and create financial peace, headache-free. And this very minute, a new community of average people are seeing above-average results to the tune of tens of millions in assets over the last few years. This system is tested, it's simple, and it's not an experiment. To date, it's helped more than 80,000 people bring hope back into their lives. It's invitation only, and right now, this new community has accepted a challenge to give away as much free gold this year as possible. Curious? Learn how to get your free gold today. Check out the next step to get the details.
Welcome back to the Raising Cain show. And I've been here talking with General Walker, who also is called Mookie. And now, where did Mookie come from? Because was that your call sign?
Yes. So, just to let the audience know, a lot of people think that, call signs are always cool kind of things like Maverick and Iceman. That's not the way it is. Usually it's something that you hate. And the more you hate it, the more they drive it in and it sticks.
That sounds about right.
There are a lot of folks whose call signs, they can't tell you what it means until they retire because it's some pretty raunchy stuff going on there. But nevertheless, mine came because they said that I smiled like Mookie Wilson, formerly of the New York Mets, the same guy who hit the ball between Bill Buckner's legs back there in the 1986 World Series. And I said, no, I don't. And quite honestly, if I just said, yeah, that's funny and left it alone, I'd be Chris Walker today. But everybody, but because I said, no, I don't, get out of here. I've been Mookie for about 40 years.
So when I blew the whistle on the FBI, it was my lawyer who decided what my code name would be because I had anonymity. And so he chose the code name MC Poda. And that's MC Poda. And I'm like, what the hell is MC Poda? You couldn't pick something cooler like 008 or something like that for, he goes, well, I could have picked Deep Throat. I'm like, oh, no, I'm glad you didn't pick that one. But I asked him, I'm like, what does that even mean? And he says, oh, I think you'll like it. Now, to give you a little background on him, he came to America at 14. His dad was a Cuban dissident who, basically had been thrown in a work camp by Castro. So he hates communists, right? And so he tells me, MC Poda, you'll like it. And I go, what does it mean? He says, making communists pay out the ass. So I said, oh, man, that's a great name. I'm owning that one.
I love that one.
So, yeah, no, that would have been a cool call sign.
Oh, yes.
Oh, man. Well, let me ask you, what message do you want to convey to young men and women who are considering a career in the military today?
All right. So I want to approach it like anybody who wants to go into the NFL or NBA or Major League Baseball. Don't come in unless you want to fight to win. If you want to come in just for the benefits, go find something else. It's not for you. because we're in a serious business. And when it comes time for ass kicking, we don't need you biting your nails and saying, "Oh, I didn't sign up for this." Actually, yes, you did. So, so my big message is only come in if you want to be an ass kicker.
Yeah, I'll share one thing too on that note. When I joined the military, I had no idea the differences really between National Guard and regular Army, and I always thought National Guard, they're weekend warriors. They're never going to get sent to war. They're National Guard, right? They're supposed to be here. I saw more reservists, National Guards getting deployed than I did, regular Army guys.
I thought the same thing. While I was active duty, we were indoctrinated to believe that National Guard and reservists were weekend warriors and they really didn't know anything. And then when I got into the Guard, FAFO, I found out. I said, "Oh my God, they, holy smokes, these are some serious people."
I've known a lot of guys I've known a lot of guys who went in as weekend warriors, and they spent more time in combat than I ever saw. So
I was deployed way more with the Guard than I was active duty.
Yeah, and that's right. That's right. You served in both.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact, and so people need to think about that. When they're signing up. When you sign up, you're signing up to
fight
defend the country. if Uncle Sam calls on you, you're going to be, sent. You're going to be sent wherever he wants you to.
The whole thing is, if you're wearing a uniform, you're deployable. If you don't want to be deployable, we have DoD civilians for that, and so do that.
Well, what was it that General Patton said? He said, "Your soul may belong to God. Your heart may belong to your woman, but your ass belongs to Uncle Sam."
That's right. That's right.
Right. Well,
man, you fight wars with weapons. You win wars with people.
That's right. That's right. So you ran for Congress, and you and I were out there running against each other at the time. And now, what are I've moved on to some other things now. I'm doing this podcast, and I've got of course I've got my regular career in cybersecurity. What are you doing these days? What are you up to?
I'm supposed to be retired, but I'm on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different boards, and I'm a chair of 2 of those boards. Two charter school boards in West Virginia that I'm a chair of. But I'm doing things that matter to me. So things that deal with youth and uplifting youth and preparing them to lead in the future. Because one of these days, I don't have kids of my own, and so the more kids I mentor, then there's a better chance of one of them changing my diapers one of these days, and me not having to be living by myself, shivering and not being able to take care of myself. Somebody's going to take care of me. But I'm trying to build them up to also lead and run this country when you and I are gone. Then the other thing I that's very important to me is taking care of our veterans and taking care of currently serving service members, because so that's what I volunteer my time on. I don't get paid for any of that. It takes a lot of my time, and I'm starting to go, maybe I said yes too many times. I should have said no.
I find myself in that. Actually, my wife finds me in that position too many times of saying yes too many times. So, yeah, I like being involved.
Got to the point now. Each day, I actually have to look at my calendar. It's filled just as much as when I was a general. I go, what the heck? I'm supposed to be relaxing. I should be on a scuba trip right now.
Yep. Well, what was that? What was that? Was it White Christmas? That song. What do you do? What do you do with the general when he stops being a general? That song. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that one.
Oh man. Okay, I'm gonna have to send a clip of it to you.
Somebody in the audience is gonna have to.
Yes. So the song's about this. Basically the movie's about this general who's up in he's retired, World War II general, and he's trying to start this basically like a ski resort or something like that, and it's not going so well for him. And he doesn't, he's no longer a general. and he's not in the military
And people
anymore.
don't have to listen to him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
So
I gotta find the movie.
So I think it's Bing Crosby and I can't
Uh-huh.
remember the other guy's name, Danny something, but it's one of their films, and so they
Danny
have the
Kaye,
song.
maybe.
Yes, and so they
All
have
right.
this song in there. What do you do with a general when he stops being a general? And it's all about and they bring all of his former all of those who were under his command, and they get them to show up at the ski lodge, and then of course it just happens to snow that night, and that's the whole White Christmas thing, and so it opens up, and
I gotta look.
you're gonna definitely have to watch that because
I gotta watch it with my mother.
I think about you and guys like you, that have I call you guys lifers, Yeah. Isn't it funny though? The military is probably one of the few careers, where the language that is used for your time in service is very similar to language used for prisoners.
Yes.
When are you getting out?
We essentially become institutionalized.
That's right. You're a lifer. Yeah, it cracks me up. So.
Oh yes.
Well, Mookie, it's been great to have you on the show, and I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate you having me.
Is there, I always like to give my guests the final opportunity. We've talked about a lot of different things, and people have short attention spans. But if there's one thing that you want people to take away from our conversation today, what would that be?
Critical thinking. I really don't care which side of the aisle you are on. Just look at the data, look at the facts, and do some critical thinking, and stop being so beholden to an ideology, because all that corruption is right there for you to see. Just take a look, and if you're still not angry, then I don't know what to say.
Yeah. Did you hear what was it? Elon Musk talking about the Trump derangement syndrome.
What do you say?
About he was at a dinner party or something like that, and I guess he just brought up Trump's name, and he says it was like somebody fired a dart with with what was it? He say I don't remember what he said, but some drugs in there or whatever, and it turned him into a monster, and they just but it was pretty funny. Well, hey, I always like to close my show in prayer. I recognize that, we need God's help. We got so much stuff going on in the world right now, and so much that Trump's doing. And I'm praying daily for Trump and for his team that, God keeps him safe and gives him wisdom. So let's just go ahead and do that. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you so much for General Chris Walker and for all of the service that he's given to this country. Lord, I thank you for the things that he is still doing to serve in his community. I pray your blessing over him in that endeavor. I also, Lord, ask that you would please bless our nation right now, God. We need more critical thinking. We need more wisdom being utilized by our leaders. And God, I thank you for Trump and his administration. I pray, God, that you would bless them, that you would keep them safe, that you would protect them, and that you would give them wisdom in the decisions that they're making. They have tough decisions ahead, and I pray you would give them courage to make the difficult choices to save our republic. And Lord, I pray your blessing over everybody that's watching right now, and over Mookie, and I thank you, God, for all that you've done. And we pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So how can people follow you? Where can they connect with you?
I'm on Twitter, so at MWUAGI, and also on Twitter at Chris Walker 4WV. Now, is that the number 4, or is it spelled out 4? Jeez, I think it's spelled out 4. Okay. I hope so. I gotta check now. Yeah, that one was managed by somebody else. Got it. Yeah, no, I had the same thing. So I had my Nate Cain 4WV, and people, you can follow me there. I took my, that was my campaign social media account that I was able to get everywhere. And so now I've turned it into my, the Raising Cain show, way of people being able to reach out.
Also, you guys can go to theraisingcaneshow.com, where you can follow my show here on Patriots Prayer. But you can also follow my show that is on, I do a show, Unleash the Political News Hour, on Talk Radio. In fact, right now at 7 p.m. Is starting the show for tonight. So you'll be able to hear Mookie again in our discussion on there. So we'll wrap this up right away. But God bless you guys, and thank you for joining us. And remember to stay strong, stay vigilant. We have to take responsibility for our own nation. And that's what we're doing tonight, and that's what we're doing here. So God bless you all, and God bless America.
God bless America.
Raise some Cain. You gotta raise some Cain. In the heartland where the faith runs strong, we've seen the shadows growing long. Watch those around us be deceived. Yeah, the fight is at our doors, no matter who we believe. Corruption, lawless day and night, we'll speak the truth into the light. We'll bring the battle, heed the call, watch the whole thing fall. We gotta raise some Cain, show the lies, break some chains and make things right. Feel the power, be the change, time is now. We gotta raise some Cain.